Hi, Katie, and welcome to the We Chat Tech podcast. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. Super excited to talk today.
Good stuff. I guess we always start, Katie, with, yeah, who's Katie and where did it all begin?
Yeah, $1 million question, right? So I started out really even before I got into this career, always knew kind of growing up, I wanted to be in healthcare of some sort. Originally, I thought I'd be a nurse. I'd kind of follow in my grandmother's footsteps. Quickly realized I can't do blood. So I was like, all right, still want to be mission driven, be a part of healthcare, but started to explore while I was in college what can that look like. I know I'm a people person. I love talking with people. My biggest fear was going to be just stuck behind a desk, and not really having that human interaction. So originally I thought, okay, let's get into medical device sales. You're kind of still in the healthcare realm, you're in the hospitals, but you're not treating. So I ended up shadowing a family friend. Realized very quickly, again, can't do blood even if I'm far away from it. So then quickly shifted again and started exploring. And after graduating college, talked with some friends and they were in the healthcare staffing agency realm. And that really kind of caught my attention because it's fast paced. You're constantly, talking to new people, setting them up for new opportunities and things along those lines. So from there, went into healthcare staffing. It was great. I went into a small firm and loved it, right? And it was really during that time when COVID hit. And so in healthcare, especially, there was such a need and there was just such passion behind the healthcare side that it was just electric, right? It was blowing up and it was a lot of fun. But while I was there, I always knew I wanted more. And what I mean by that is more human interaction, right? With staffing agencies. And it's an amazing thing. I still partner with them today. But it's fast paced. You kind of find the right person, right? Very quickly. You send them to 5 or 6 clients at a time and really just hope one of those positions lands, so then you get paid out, right? And so I loved it. It was a lot of fun, but I wanted that long-term fit where I'm really selling a company I know, I believe in, and I'm really knowing that I'm setting this person up for success. Because sometimes when in agency world, it's the blind leading the blind, where you get like a 30-minute call with the hiring manager, and that's really all you get. It's all you
Yeah.
know about the company outside of your own research. Where when you're in-house, I really appreciate and kind of what drew me to being in-house is you get to fully be ingrained in that culture. You know why there's an opening. You know what the team looks like, what their gaps are, things along those lines. So I think even when I was in that agency realm, I knew that wasn't going to be the end route for me. So from there, I started exploring some startups, just talking with my network, joined a different startup called City Block, which was an amazing experience, mission driven, and really just helping, people that maybe are underprivileged get the healthcare that they need. So loved that. It was my first real foot in the door in the startup world where it's fast paced, ever changing.
Different ball
Um,
game, right? Different ball game to sort of corporate.
Yes, yes. So it was definitely different, but I think really having that agency background set me up for success to get into that high-paced environment, right? Because it's still the same sort of intention of we need to get this person in ASAP because we need this for this business need. But there's just a little bit more intentionality behind it. So I really liked that. And then organically just started networking. I moved to New York City at that point and, just started networking within, the industry, had some conversations, and that's where I discovered Prompt. And so it was really early stage startup. And it was an exciting time because they didn't have any recruiters. So it was an opportunity for me to
You're the
come
first one,
in.
Katie. You
Yep.
were the first one. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like one of those no-brainer moments where I knew I had to take this risk, right? And so it was really cool to be given that opportunity. And again, that was about almost 2.5 years ago now. So it's full circle to kind of see, you know, starting that to where we are today, which we'll get into, I'm sure, in this
Wow.
conversation. But yeah, it's been a wild ride. I love it. And yeah, just going through the motions now and just continuing to hire. And, one thing that I really appreciate about Prompt and honestly all of my experiences is we are so mission driven. And that's like our number one priority when filling these roles.
Fair play. I guess obviously like your journey in healthcare started with your grandma, if I'm correct in saying
Yeah.
that. And
Yep.
then
Yeah.
obviously
My
you
grandma was a
don't like
nurse.
So she's a nurse, and obviously you don't like blood, like myself. I
No.
cannot do blood at all. By the way, I'm
I
awful.
faint.
Yeah, yeah. So can you do needles or not? Can you do like jabs and
No.
stuff or not?
Nope.
No.
Nope. Yeah, blood work, like, they have to tie me down so I don't fall off the chair. Like,
Yeah,
it's never
I'm the
good,
same as
but
you. I'm a bit of
I
a wuss
wish
when
I
it comes to
could.
blood. You know what? I think it's just natural, isn't it? If you don't like blood, you can't really help it. It's just
No.
it's like human nature sort of thing. You either
Yeah,
okay with it or you're not. So I'm the same as you. I faint if I have like a injection or something really
same
bad.
thing.
So I see
Yeah.
white in my eyes and I'm just gone. So
I could faint right now at the thought.
yeah, that's it. So then you've obviously like you've worked in two healthcare companies now internally. So
Yeah,
that's your second one. So you've been in that space for a while. So which is really
yeah.
interesting. I guess in terms of your approach to hiring from like a recruitment standpoint, do you have any particular sort of ways of working from an internal point of view, not agency point of view, like my side,
Yeah.
but your side? Do you have any sort of ways of working that you think can benefit other companies?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to, and if you see my LinkedIn, you see, you work with me, I think it comes down to candidate experience. And to take that one step further, I even just mean being transparent and as simple as be a human being, right? Put yourself in their shoes. We've all unfortunately, fortunately, have been in that situation where you maybe don't have a job or you have a job and you're not happy and it's affecting your life and you just want that next opportunity, right? And so I think just approaching it with empathy, understanding, and just remembering there's a human being on the other side, right? And I think recruiters right now, or recruitment or talent, whatever you want to call it, has a pretty tough reputation right now. The market isn't great. I'm hoping it'll turn around for candidates, but with that, like, it's our responsibility, and I say our as in, like, talent
The whole
acquisition
industry,
leaders.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's our responsibility to kind of fix that and show, no, we care about you. We want to find you the right position, in that sense. So I think again, just leading with empathy is the most important thing. Um, that's simple to say and broad to say. So like action items and how like my team does that is, I'm very strict with, communication with our, I say clients, with our candidates. So my team, it's expected you're touching base with every active candidate within 3 to 5 days after each conversation you have,
Nice.
whether it's an initial screen, whether it's a sourcing call, whether they're on their final call with the hiring managers. Um, Candidates deserve to know where they are, and that really stems from even my own experience where how many times I'm sure you've experienced it where you're super excited about an interview, it goes great, you feel really energized after, and then you don't hear from the
Nothing
recruiter or
back.
the team for
Yeah.
3 months.
Mm.
So I think that is like the biggest downfall right now, and I get how it happens, right? Productivity numbers are super high, KPIs, expectations for recruiters are super high. And as I say that, teams are smaller than they used to be. So it's how do you balance, your workday with also giving that quality and attention to candidates? So I get why there's a challenge. It's just a matter of prioritizing it and making it, a part of your culture and making sure that you have the right people in seat that genuinely care, in that
I
sense.
I think that's like the one thing that I think I mentioned to you when I first reached out to you on LinkedIn a few months back, but your profile sort of says about kind of experience on there and how important it is for you as a talent leader. And I think one thing that I'm probably the biggest on as well is that kind of experience. Are they getting told yes or a no? I think any sort of any contact, whether it's yes or a no, is better than no contact ultimately
Yeah.
because then they know what's going on. So it's to having that respect to sort of to communicate effectively with candidates, I think as well.
Yeah.
It's really
Exactly.
important, which I think just
Yeah.
it is missing a lot. And even some of the companies I've worked with over the years, they can't communicate properly either. So it's just
No.
are
Yeah.
you
And
seeing it probably as well before?
all the time, all the time. Even previous roles where maybe and that's just comes from, experience level, right? When I was an entry level recruiter, I didn't have as much leeway to say, hey, we should be doing it this way, or here's what I'm seeing, right? And so I think it just comes from time learning from both your own experiences, but then seeing it as a frontline recruiter. But yeah, and I think there's tools that can help, right? And, automation to a degree. I think there should always be human touch when you're talking hiring. But there are tools to help, in that sense. And one thing I also like to mention there too, which is almost a gap, that I've seen as well, just from on LinkedIn, talking with other leaders, is like automation in the sense that you're automatically rejecting people. yes, if you have 4,000 applications and you're lucky enough to have that, I understand that to a degree, but at the same time, I think a human being should still be overseeing to a certain degree. And then when we're setting that automated, email, it should somehow have a personal touch. How many times have you gotten an email? It doesn't even have to be a rejection email, but a standard email that you're like, this was mass produced and 30 of us got this, right?
Mm,
And you're taking the time, you're spending and making the effort to apply for this position. It's the least we can do for this candidate is at least
yeah.
take the time and communicate with them. Or if they ask for feedback, take the time to get back to them. That's something that I've seen, not so much here, thankfully, but other places where a candidate will reach out, ask a question, or hey, what were my gaps? I'm just trying to get better. I'm really interested in this company, and I want to continue to grow. It takes 10 seconds to respond back, right? And just giving that human touch is something that I really push my team to do on a daily basis.
On that note, Katie, what's the biggest reason why maybe even an internal team wouldn't give sort of direct feedback if you're saying it's mainly automated in some companies? Do you know what
Yeah.
the reason would be? Are they too busy or is it too many applicants? What are the main sort of reasons for that, just for candidates that might be watching?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think it's a number of things, like you said, right? I think the like candidate flow, there, like I can tell you right now, we are fortunate, very fortunate, I will say, where we get over 1,000 applications for pretty much every role we
Per
have.
role?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
So,
my,
and that's
wow,
not the normal, and that's not the norm
that's
at
a
all.
lot.
So, I'm very thankful for that. But I think that, like from that standpoint, from a capacity standpoint, again, because TA teams are leaner, because in a business function, if you look at it, we're the team that costs them money, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
and if let's say there's rifts or hard times in companies, they're going to probably get rid of talent before they get rid of everything else. So I think that's probably why teams are leaner from what I'm seeing. So I say productivity wise, it can be challenging to get back and make that personalization. What I've seen other companies do as well as what we've started implementing is, especially when we have a mass amount of applications, is okay, let's take a look. Are there certain themes with the resumes that we've been rejecting or they're not getting to that first round? And we create, I don't want to say a blanket email by any means, but it's a little bit more personal of, thank you so much for your interest here at Prompt Health. We have a ton of applications, something along those lines, but here are the main themes that we're seeing, that aren't making it past that next round. So it might not be direct feedback because again, we're human beings and we have
It's
so much
tough.
time
A
in a
1,000
day.
people though to get through is a
Yeah,
lot. It's a lot of time consumed to get back to everybody
exactly.
individually. So, and I understand that as well. I think it's just when there's 1,000 people applying, Kate, and 800 of them aren't suitable, that's when it's almost like, and they're clearly not suitable at all, by the way. Do you see that
Yeah.
quite often, or are they mainly
Y-
normally people that are suitable that apply?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think especially with the increase in AI, and I love AI. This is not a dig at it at all, right?
I
But
do as well, by
I
the way.
think right, you have to. It makes everyone's
It's
life
great.
easier. But I think a big challenge there is it makes it so much easier to customize your resume to match the job description, or it's so easy to just hit auto apply and you have a
Yeah.
bot. Even let's say you're even more technical and you create a bot and it automatically applies to all of these roles without you looking at them. So yeah, I'd say a large part of maybe let's say if we have 1,000 applications, I'd say maybe 200 to 300 of them are absolutely not qualified. So in that case, yeah, they might get the automatic reject. Or another thing I'm seeing lately, and this could be a whole topic we could spend time on, but is like fraudulent candidates where it's fake
Yep.
resumes and bots even join interviews and things like that. So with my system that we use now, they actually rolled out a fraud detection use case.
Oh,
So
really?
that's helped significantly where that's typically, and it's still new, so I don't put all my trust in it just because, again, that human touch, regardless of where you are in a company, I think is important.
Yeah.
But it will automatically flag. And then as a recruiter, we will go in and review those profiles. And if it's glaring fake or fraud, we would then reject and just send a standard blanket. We decide to move forward with other candidates.
Right. Is that part of the ATS? Does it integrate with the ATS system where it all sort of goes together, or?
Yes. And so I could even kind of get into that now too. But so when I joined Prompt, we used an ATS, if you want to call it that, but it was very, very minimal. No bells, no whistles. It was basically a link for you to apply
A
to a job.
spreadsheet,
And
right? Like a spreadsheet sort of thing.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And it worked for what they needed at that time. So I joined, for about 6 months, I learned their ways, learned their processes, and then I started implementing some changes and worked very closely with our CTO at the time, our co-founder, and, my boss, the VP of people. And we kind of brainstormed and I brought together a few different, ATS systems. And we ended up going with Ashby. I'm not sure if you're
Ashby.
familiar.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
is
I am.
life changing. It
It's
has
good.
made
Yeah.
our jobs 10 times easier. The customer support they have is amazing. And just it's an overall an amazing, organization. So we've been working with them for a little over, I want to say a year and a half, almost 2 years at this point. And it's just been such a powerful tool for us to get to the level we are. Like I said, before we started this, just this year alone, we've grown by 200 and we
Yeah,
have
it's
3 more
ridiculous.
months, in
That's
that
too much,
sense.
Casey, too much.
Yes, yes. But I like the fast pace, I wouldn't change it for the world. It's exciting, but
That's almost
those
one hire a day,
tools.
isn't it? Almost one hire a
Yeah.
day. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's been crazy. It's so funny. We'll have like a slow week where it's, maybe 3 to 4 hires and it's like, oh man, like what's going on? But no, that's normal, right? In that sense. So yeah, it's been a
fair
wild
play.
ride.
Well, we've actually had the pleasure of using Ashby lately, the last sort of 5 or 6 months with a few different clients that use it now. And I
Oh,
think the
awesome.
difference between it compared to other ones we use, like we've used like Team Taylor before. Team Taylor, for me, they're okay. They make some mistakes sometimes as well. Like for example, with Team
Yeah.
Taylor, we had um, what one of another company's candidates came through on our sort of like pipeline. I was like, that cannot happen.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, so there was three companies, agencies work on one position, including us, and we had somebody else's CV and name in our pipeline.
Wow.
It was a mistake from Team Taylor, but that's just one example. They've been good apart from that, but we've seen it happen a few times with different
Yeah.
platforms, that sort of stuff happening. But that's obviously data. That's a data protection nightmare,
Yeah.
isn't it? That's bad. So,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
Ashby's been very, very good. I'm pretty impressed. And you can integrate Juicebox as well. Do you use Juicebox?
No, but we started to
No?
explore that. That's like a huge
Okay.
initiative now, with the transition. So to give you some background, um, again, I started as the sole recruiter for about a year. And then at that point, I was like, I can handle this, but we need someone else. I need more resources. I really want to continue to build out the department, right? So there's only so much you can do from, again, pushing that candidate experience, hiring at the rate we're hiring, but then also building out processes and expectations and really just building the department out. So thankfully, I've built my team out now. So it's been a transition because, again, I'm so used to being frontline, hiring, recruiting, all of that. So Q1, I definitely was still more IC, but still kind of mentoring, coaching my team. Where now I'm kind of transitioning now that everyone's onboarded to now that true leadership position where I still do have a few positions because I will always be boots on the ground. I think it's really important to just continue to drive that culture.
Yeah.
And also just from like a leadership standpoint, I'm not going to tell my team to do something I wouldn't do
If you
myself.
can't do it, yeah, 100%.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So I really like being in the trenches there. But yeah, with that, I think it's really important. I just lost my train of thought. What was the question? I'm so sorry.
It was about, you know what, I've got blank as well.
Oh. Like, I'm
I've
like
had a
answering
complete
that.
blank.
Me too.
We were talking about,
ATS
you said,
juice
sorry, about
box
being at IC, then go to leadership, and
and then
Q1, how
juice
you're more
box.
hands-on, and then, yeah, and juice
Yes,
box as well.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So with Juicebox now in this quarter, hiring is slower for us, which is not, that's probably the normal for most TA
Yeah.
groups. And so with that, I've started to kind of explore other tools and things along those lines. So Juicebox has been on my radar. We actually just recently launched with MetaView. I'm not sure if you've heard of MetaView. But basically what I've noticed, again, because we are hiring at such a fast rate, that there's such thing as recruiter fatigue, right? All of our interviews are done on camera. And so with that, we're manually taking notes at the same time. So what I found is after your sixth or seventh 30-minute interview in a day, you're exhausted. You start
Yeah.
typing, you misspell words, you get flustered. It affects the candidate experience at the end of the day. Not drastically, but enough that it's not fair.
Yeah.
So then I started exploring some AI note takers, in that sense where one, we don't record candidates because I think interviews are stressful enough to then know you're getting recorded, I think just adds a little bit
That's
more.
common, by the way, Casey. We see that a
I
lot with our clients. It's
know.
very common now.
It is
And they
common.
watch it back and this sort of
Yeah.
stuff. So
I just don't think I can get behind it. And maybe I'm old fashioned and maybe that'll change. But I just like having that free conversation and I don't know, make it feel a little less informal and intimidating. So that's one tool that we started utilizing. And ironically enough, Ashby actually just launched their own version of that.
Oh,
So my guess
really?
is, yeah, I
Ah,
haven't
okay.
tested it out yet. But my guess is we'll probably kind of bring that in house. So we're back into that all in one system.
Fair play. I've seen one called Quill.
Yep.
I'm not sure if you know it, but it looks really, really impressive. I haven't actually used it yet, but I,
Yeah.
I like making notes myself. Obviously, we're
I,
not as busy as you, Casey. Poor you, obviously
yeah.
200 hires in a year, but obviously we're external. So I think I enjoy the sort of. I've still got my New York notepad here as well.
100%.
So
100%.
I
I
still
love
use
it.
that. So obviously I do notes on my laptop as well at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's just it's nice to feel a bit like I'm doing something while I'm on the phone as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's good.
And I go back and forth with that too, right? And I actually have my team and myself. Like we do still take notes. It's just we're not typing like we used
Yes.
to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's more, okay, make a side note here. If you want the hiring manager to dig in further, put a star, right, on that question. And the reason that I kind of started leaning towards that again was the recruiter fatigue, but then also what's worse than being on a conversation, especially if you're not, there's people that are great at interviews and then there's others that are a little nervous. They haven't done it
Mm,
in a while and it's no fault of their own. So there's nothing worse than say you're a nervous interviewer and, you and I are talking, say you're interviewing me and you're just over here looking at your other screen, typing
yeah.
away.
Yeah.
It almost feels like you're not being listened to, even though
Listening.
you
Yeah.
are, right? But then you
100%.
get in your head, you're flustered and, so that's really those are the 2 points that really kind of drew me to let's try it out, see how it goes, and see
I mean,
how,
I can see it definitely working from like an internal point of view for sure. I
yeah,
think that'd be really good for mass hiring as well.
yeah,
So I'm on board with it for sure. I think obviously for us, I
yeah,
think we're not at the stage where we're like we're not internal firstly, and I think obviously we
exactly.
have much less volume of roles, so I think that's where it's different for us. But I can imagine it
100%.
saves you a lot of time not having to sort of type away after each interview and take notes. So
Yeah. And then
I
clean them up
understand it.
after and yeah,
Yeah,
try to
I guess
work smarter.
100%. Casey, for those who aren't in recruitment or even that are looking to get into recruitment, what is the difference you've experienced or in general with being internal versus external? So my side versus your side, essentially.
Yeah. So I think again, kind of like what I said earlier, or I guess let me start external because that's how I started. So I'll kind of
Yeah.
just go full circle there. But really, external hiring, it is amazing. And I'm so happy I started that way because it taught me, myself how to move fast, think strategically, spot great talent, but then also be that great hiring partner with the company you're working with. But with that, I think it's more focused on metrics, right? So how many calls have you made? How many interviews do you have this week, in that sense. And so um, I think that's the difference I see there with compared to internal, where internal, again, like I said before, you're closer to the mission. You're closer to the culture. You know the team you're hiring for. Maybe not well, but you know them enough that you can Slack them or you can call them
Yeah.
and be like, "Hey, I have a quick question. What do you think of this?" Or, you can kind of bounce ideas off of each other. So I think external is more of a strategic partnership and then internal, it's more of a strategic relationship, which I know those sounds very similar, but you get that long term, touch point and credibility with the internal team. There's so many times that even on an interview, if a candidate asks a question, I'll quickly reach out to the director of that department and be like, "Hey, is this a thing? I want to make sure I'm not misleading or, anything along those lines." So you just have those people right there, and there for whatever you need.
And Slack
But
is so good. Slack is like my
yes,
favorite. We use it internally for
it is
ourselves.
amazing.
It's the best
I'd
thing
be
ever.
lost without it.
And it's so cheap as well. Like to give people context, so we pay
Yeah.
I think £16 a month for 2 seats on Slack. Obviously, just 2 of us. So we just like it's nothing,
Yeah.
is it, to pay for and you
No.
get video calling and all the other stuff integrated into it as well, like Trello and stuff. So
Yep.
we love it. I think it's really
Yeah.
good.
Slack is a game changer for sure. But yeah, I think, again, why I went in more in-house is just, I'm an empathetic person. And I've always wanted something deeper. So having that long-term relationship, and don't get me wrong, you can absolutely positively have that long-term relationship agency side. Um, it's just maybe not as frequent, right? They're not hiring constantly. Where here, I now have close relationships and understandings of each department, what they look for skill set wise, culture set wise, and things along those lines.
Do you miss being external a little bit? The thrill
Yes,
of it or not?
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, listen, do I still have the thrill when someone accepts an offer and I just, you get so excited and it just makes your day or even just having those offer calls? They're amazing. But, I will say, when you are agency, you are chasing that money and the money is there.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Like there's nothing better than one, getting someone in the right seat at the right time. But then afterwards, you call them 30 days in and you check in, hey, how's it going? And they're like, this is perfect. I love it. Now that's a lifelong contact. So when they're ready for their next role, they're going to call you.
Okay, so
So,
you call them in 30 days and they're like, "Ben, I've just been let go." And then you're like, "Oh, rebate
and then,
period. Oh, no." And you got
right. And then
the
you're like, my
money gets paid
money.
back to the client. I'm like, "Oh, no."
It hurts. Thankfully, I've only had that happen, I wanna say, like, 3 times, but
That's
listen,
not bad.
I
That's not
remember
bad.
those days very much, and they are tough days because mentally you're like, "That's my money. It's gonna get in my bank account 60 days from now, like, perfect. We're gonna do this, this, this," and then it's like, "What do you mean?" Like, "No, no, no, I already
Why do you
accounted for
quit
that."
after 2 weeks? Why do you quit? Like, I
Yeah,
think, Katie,
yeah.
the worst thing as well is when, like, someone accepts an offer, like, and they have a long notice period, like a 3-month notice period. So in America, there's 2 weeks normally, isn't it, for you guys?
Yep.
So it's very
Yeah,
short. In the
yeah.
UK, for some context, you may or may not
I
know
actually
this,
knew
but
this, yeah.
yeah, so there's between 1 month and 3 months normally.
Oh,
And I've had it times before where someone served an entire 3-month notice period. They've accepted an offer, signed a contract with one of our clients, and they've literally, day before starting, they've said, Ben, I'm not joining
oh,
anymore. And we've had that before, like a few
that
times in the
hurts.
career. And it don't, it's more so the trust from the candidate that I just
Yeah,
lose completely. And that's just
absolutely.
like, it doesn't really affect me too much from like it's more the client that obviously it sort of causes a bit of friction between us and them
Yeah.
because they've essentially messed them around.
Now they're
Um,
delayed another 3 months, in
yeah,
that
well,
sense.
yeah, on a critical hire as well. So
Yeah.
I think,
That stings.
yeah, and I think this is what, like, with candidate experience, I'm massive on that. But at the same time, it does work both ways, and I think trust has got to be there all round, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Um, so I guess on prompt then, obviously from like a internal point of view on your side in your team, Katie, how do you balance internal promotions with external hires? How does that work?
Yes. So even before I joined Prompt, which I really appreciate, that is a huge priority. Internal mobility, internal growth is something that is like a huge driving factor in our culture. And it's always been top of mind, which again, I love that I didn't have to bring that in. So, I'd say we're really that kind of company, and I think this is really every startup, but maybe we're unique to some degree where hard work does not go unnoticed, right, or unrewarded. I'd say probably about 90% of our roles that we're getting ready to open, we explore internal first to really make sure, is there someone that's looking for that next step in their career? Is there someone on a growth plan that they're really looking again to get to, leadership or to transition from sales to marketing or something along those lines. So we really like to, drive that. With that, and since we've grown significantly, I noticed a huge gap. And like this is probably in the last 8 months or so, just because this last year, again, 200 employees is a huge jump. And so we really want to maintain that culture. So what I started to do, and it's up and live as of last quarter, is build out an internal job board that has all of our external roles open as well as internal exclusive roles only. And that's really just to make sure, even if you're a day one employee or you've been here 6 months or 10 years, you can go there and everyone is welcome to apply to any position.
Is that a custom tool you mean that the team builds in-house or an actual tool that's already on the market that you could bring in sort of to have there? If
Yeah,
that
so
makes
that's what I was
sense.
exploring and working with our engineering team there. But really, what we decided to do is with Ashby. It's like I'm going to plug Ashby all day here.
Yeah.
But with Ashby, they have an internal job board tool that's already in their system. So what I did was I just kind of built it out within their templates, and now every role will be posted. Even like I posted a marketing role. Actually, it's not even external yet. We posted only internal last week, and we wanted to give it about a week and a half. And if no one was interested, we'd then open it up external.
Cool.
And we
Okay.
also do company-wide announcements as well. So it's not just the employee's responsibility to continuously check. We like if there's a new role or something that we want to highlight, I'll send something out to our business channel in Slack and just say, heads up, this is open, applications are due, whatever the date might be.
Fair play. Is Ashby expensive, Case, just out of interest? So I don't know how much it costs from like an internal point of view. I know it depends on the company, how big the company is,
Yeah.
etc. But is it quite expensive as a
I
tool?
would not say it's cheap,
Okay. Okay.
but for what you get out of it, you'd essentially be paying for maybe 3 to 4 tools separately. So when you look at it from that standpoint, it's pretty fair in the market. I don't know exactly what it costs off the top of my head, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely a jump because when we first joined, Ashby, I think we were like under 100 employees. So I was like, oh, this is great. Like it's reasonable to the previous almost ATS system we had.
Yeah.
And then we kind of had to jump into the larger bucket just because we've grown significantly. So it definitely was an increase. You pay per seat. So you get like, I think with us, we have 20 admin seats. So that's really just like hiring managers and my staff that really have that. And then, if you're like not a hiring manager, but you're on the interview panel, you still have access, but you just won't be able to go in depth and see, some of the notes or things along those lines.
Okay. Katie, on the sort of more candidate side of things, not experienced, but just from their point of view, what sort of tips do you have for candidates that are being ghosted by
Ugh.
either external or internal teams? And also, second part of that question is how how do you get around, from a candidate's point of view, how do you get around um, interview fatigue if you have like 5 or 6 jobs at once
Yeah.
going on for them?
Yeah. So first, I'd say if that's happening internal, I'd say run. Uh, like
Okay.
that is just not a great culture. Mistakes happen. Don't get me wrong. Maybe, it was missed or something, in that sense happened. But if you're applying for a role internally and something that I kind of built out as a loose policy here to ensure that doesn't happen, especially as we launch this new job board and, it's new. There's going to be changes that need to be made, things along those lines, is we actually ask them to speak with their current leader before they apply, and not so much for permission, but more or less, hey, this is an area of interest and I really want to apply for this position. I wanted to give you a heads up. And then from there, also kind of just talking, I say myself as the leader, but also my recruiters, talk with them and just be like, hey, just a heads up, I think I'm going to apply for this role. We welcome it, right? And so then that way, that's like the I guess security blanket outside of just the application. So that's really one way, because that's something that I'm really paranoid about is internally, both internally and externally, but internally specifically, the last thing I would ever want is for a candidate to really put themselves on the line. They're excited about this new opportunity. They love the culture. They love prompt and then feel slighted.
Mm,
So that's one thing. And if that's happening, I think speak up, talk to your manager, reach out to the TA partner, reach out to HR if you don't have TA partners, right? And just make sure that, you vouch for yourself, and stand up for yourself if you need to. And then externally, if you're getting ghosted, unfortunately, and it's like my biggest pet peeve in the industry, and again, I think why we're getting such a bad rep right now, it's beyond inappropriate and inexcusable, in my opinion. Even if you had to do an audit, it goes back to what I was saying before, right? Obviously, in a perfect world, we're not doing automated messages, or if we're doing automated messages, they still have somewhat of a personal touch. But if you can, you don't have the capacity, at least have the decency to send an automated message, in that sense. Candidates deserve that. They're putting themselves on the line, and maybe they've interviewed before, maybe they haven't. It's a nerve-wracking time to have to make that switch, that lifestyle change, whatever it might be. So I think just having the decency and remembering there's a human being on the other side um, is something that's really
is
important
there
to
any
us.
tools, Casey, you recommend for helping companies with that? Maybe if they're, I think if some companies, for example, have one talent person like you when you first
Yeah.
joined Prompt Case, and that person hasn't got, let's say they have a 10,000 applicants. I know it's not realistic, but 10,000
But
for one
yeah,
role. But how would, like, what sort of tools would you recommend for that person to get or implement in the business to really get,
yeah.
make sure that each candidate gets to hear back?
Yeah. And I think, and I am lucky, we made the right decision, but I think, again, plugging Ashby here, Ashby has these tools, these automations. There's, there's things like I said, like the fraud. There's a tool where essentially if you put the total requirements, it's an AI feature, right? And so if
Yeah.
I say, you need to have 5 years of experience in a clinical setting, you need to have SaaS experience, you need to have strong communication skills. That
It
one's not a
rates
good
it, right? It
example.
rates it green
It
and like,
rate
yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So I think that helps from a standpoint of you have 10,000 applications, you are a sole recruiter, time management, right? You got to
yeah.
find a way. You have to prioritize it. And I think that goes from top to bottom. Are the executives seeing you as a partner or are you an order taker? And I think that is the number one thing, because if as soon as you have that partnership approach and they see you as a tool, I think that really allows you to then build out your day how you need to. So like for an example, when it was just me, I'd spend my Friday mornings, Fridays and Mondays actually, because I feel like applications come in the most Friday
On
through
those
Monday.
days. Yeah,
Um,
100%.
and so I'd spend my mornings, I'd block off like 2 to 3 hours, and I'd run through your resumes and run through. I can't say I'm perfect and I've gotten through all of them by any means, but I try my best. Another tool, again, within Ashby, and I know other ATS have this. I worked with Greenhouse before. I know they have this as well.
Yeah,
But also I think it's important to look first in, first out, right? So I think a lot of times you can get caught up and look at the most recent applications. I understand that, but that's not fair. Look from the bottom to the top. One from a side of if you are going to reject this candidate, they shouldn't hear back 6 months later, right? It should be a reasonable time frame. My goal, and we're not perfect, right? But my goal is if you apply, you're going to hear back within that first month. Ideally, that first 2 weeks. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but with that, I also have automated emails set up, which is another tool I think recruiters could use, where it reaches out once they apply, confirming, hey, thank you so much for your application. We also put like a little snippet of candidate fraud. And, if you get an email from someone pretending to be prompt, just know the emails that you should be receiving them from are at promptdmr.com. So I try to give little snippets and just kind of be like, hey, look, we see this. And then also what I've started recently implementing and testing with a few roles is also sending out maybe an automated email if they're still in that pre-screen application review stage. Hey, just letting you know, we're starting to review applications. We'll be in touch in the next few weeks. So just multiple touch points. And it doesn't have to be, it sounds kind of contradictory to what I was just saying before, but it doesn't have to be personal touches when it's not a rejection, right? Just a heads up.
yeah.
Hey, we're here. We see you. We will get to you. And just kind of going that extra
I think
mile
that
helps.
candidates really appreciate that a lot as well, because I think one thing that I'm really good at is sort of if clients are being a bit slow with feedback, if it's 2 weeks
Hmm.
between me sending the CV across and getting feedback in, every 2 days I'm sort of LinkedIn them
Yeah.
or giving them a call saying, hi Ben,
Like I'm
I'm on the
here.
case for you. Yeah, I'm on the case for you. Give me a few days. When I hear back, I'll let you know. That goes a lot further than sort of just telling them
Totally.
nothing for 2 weeks. Like
Yeah.
communication is so important. So
And that's like our
it's massive.
reputation, right? As your
Yeah,
company, as my company, like we are the first line to show off, okay, the culture, the mission, what we're doing. If we're not communicating, what makes them want to come work here, right? Like
yeah.
that's not the best first impression.
The thing
And
is, like,
again,
there's a lot of recruitment people that actually aren't very good at communicating anyway. That's the thing. I've seen it many
yeah,
a time, you know?
yeah,
So
me too.
it's a very interesting world we work in, isn't it? Very
Yes,
interesting.
I know. And it's like, you can preach from the mountaintops, but if not everyone is aligned or sees the value in that communication side, you can only make an impact in your small circle. And to me, if I'm making it 1% better every day, that's enough for me.
100%. There we are. Katie, you mentioned earlier on towards the start of the call that you obviously have some partners that you sort of work with for certain roles, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
What makes a good partner for an internal team? So sorry, what makes a good external partner for you?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's a few things, and I also came from that side, so I think that
Yes.
helps as well. So I kind of understand, their urgency, why they send so many resumes at once and things like that. I think the first and most powerful step is giving external, clients or partners, I should say, as much information as you can. They are an extension of your company, right? They are representing you. How can we make them look? And they're great recruiters, so it's not so much I need to coach them around that side, but more or less give them the tools to talk about prompt, get these candidates excited, right? So we mainly partner with staffing firms on our engineering roles, just because we find those are tough to fill.
Yeah.
So with that, I kind of give an overview of team size, team structure, turnover. Has there been any? What are the pain points? What are gaps? Where do we see this not company? Where do we see this, team going, in that sense. So that's like the basics I like to give. And then from there, I think it's really powerful. And I know some companies are kind of in between and wishy washy when it comes to feedback, but giving strong feedback. So that way I'm not wasting their time. They're not
Yeah.
going to just send,
100%.
because you guys are interviewing at the same time too, right? So it's an
Yeah. Yeah.
extra layer. So the last thing I want is to have my partner spend 5 hours interviewing people that I'm not even going to consider. I've also done in the past is, I've given like bullets of previous resumes we've hired. Like, here's the skill sets we look for. These are green flags. These are yellow. We're open to this. We're open to that, and then also it goes back to, I have one client that, I work with where we kind of just talk once a week, check in. It's a text sometimes. It's nothing crazy. Hey, here's where we're at. I have this internal candidate that just got an offer. We still have another head count, kind of just giving live updates. So then again, it goes back to candidate experience. Even if they're not my direct candidates, they're eventually going to be. So I want them to be set up for success from the beginning, so that way they can be successful throughout.
I think a lot of the partnerships I see, obviously from my side as well, with sort of me and one of our clients, for example, if that's internal. I
Hmm.
think every recruiter works very differently. I think for me, like,
Yeah.
I get quite close to our clients in a from a talent point of view, and they're
Yeah.
quite close to me. So like we some of us chat like every day sort of thing, texting, WhatsApp, about stuff
Yeah.
outside of work as well. So I think because we can relate to each other quite well, I think normally that helps as well. I think if somebody hasn't worked external before, that's leading a talent function, that can be a little bit difficult sometimes. I've seen that over my
Yeah.
last 8 years or so, because they haven't got the empathy of what we're actually doing, if that makes sense. They haven't been there in our shoes, sort of, to see that we are working
For
17-hour
you.
days for you,
Yeah.
for your company a lot of the time as well.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's a really interesting dynamic. It depends on have you worked external and different factors as well,
Have
apart
you
from that.
noticed when working with certain clients, like there's almost a tension or a competition between the recruiter? I haven't seen it again firsthand being internal,
I just
but
mean
when
like
I was external, so like
just from
I
me and
remember,
our client, for example.
yeah, yeah. So if you're working with like an in-house recruiter, I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
remember this from my experience where there's almost like tension or a competition, and it's like, no, look, like I'm here to help you. Like I'm not looking to take your job. I'm not looking to do anything. Like my goal is to make your life easier. Like I'm your partner.
That's a great, that's a really good question. I want to say is in the UK, no.
That's
In the
great.
US, yes,
Yeah,
which is weird. I didn't actually
I
think about
know.
this before, but in the US, we've done work there. I've done like 4 years in the US, or working across from like east to west coast.
Yeah,
Normally, sort of east or west coast sort of thing. Not really in the middle.
in the middle.
Bit weird. Yeah. But it's just weird that we do no work in like the middle of the US, but only like New York, Miami, and then like
That makes
LA,
sense.
San Fran, San Diego, those sort
Yep.
of areas. But I think in the US, yes, there's some tension sometimes, but I think it's
Yeah.
healthy tension, I think, as well. They want to get the
100%.
role filled, save a fee. We want to
I
get the
know.
role filled, get a fee. So it's sort of like,
It's a little
it's
game, but
healthy.
like it's healthy.
Yeah.
But I just remember noticing that and I was like, okay, like I'm a resource.
But end of the day, I think as an internal talent person, you've got to try and fill the role yourself and save that 20% fee or 15% fee.
Absolutely.
And I understand that as well. But that, I think if it's something that isn't filled in a month or something, then they're going to reach out to externals if
Exactly.
needed. So I think the respect's normally there. In the UK, I think it's they don't really compete too much. I don't think so anyway, which is good.
All right, that's good. I'll tell my colleagues at our agency, get over to the UK.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I guess from like when you were external, when you were sort of agency side, Katie, um, is there any advice you have for someone like me that's a bit more junior though than me, that sort of has 2 years experience? If they're going to go internal, is there anything you'd recommend for them to sort of get good at in terms of skill set before
Yeah.
making that move?
Yeah, I think the top two, and it's a theme in our conversation today, is, empathy and then also just communication, right? Prioritize that because now you are the face of the company internally. It's sometimes easy, again, to get caught up agency side. You're working with six clients, right? So it's like, okay, yep, move quick. I'm going to send you. They'll give you more information and then move on to the next candidate, where you can still do that to a certain degree here,
Mhm.
internal. But again, you are the first impression of that company. So I think one thing that, and everyone's different, but what worked for me is just finding something that I'm aligned with from a mission standpoint. I'm not saying I eat, sleep, breathe PT by any means, but I eat, sleep, breathe, making a difference in someone's life and making it easier for someone and being a part of that bigger impact. So I think that is one. And then just the communication side, right? And keeping that urgency that you have on the agency side, but bringing that in-house and changing the culture if that's not there to maintain that, right? Because that's what candidates and also you deserve. I always talk about like giving candidates feedback, but that also goes with that hiring manager partnership. I tell my hiring managers till I'm blue in the face, I need feedback within 48 hours. If I don't have that, I have to hound you. I have to ask. I'm going to bother you. Just give it to me, in that
Do you
sense.
have to
And
ever report somebody like that to like the CEO? Does that ever happen? Or it's a bit of a weird question, but do you ever like
no,
have to go
not a weird
above them
question at
to be
all.
like, he's not giving me feedback. It's been 3 months,
No, if it
that
was
sort
been
of
three
thing.
months, I would be like, I'd fly out to wherever they are because we're a remote company and be like, hey, like what do we need to do? No, it's never gotten to that point. Everyone's super respectful again. And one thing I appreciate about Prompt is they really do see TA as a value and as a partner. I know certain companies don't always see that. So I think that really helps from like a respect standpoint of, hey, I need this. This is my ask, and people actually give it. Has there been cases where it's been more than 48 hours? Absolutely. We are a startup. We are moving quick. People have a million and one things to do. But when it comes down to that, I'm shameless. I will chase. I will, if I need to set 15 minutes with you, I will. If I need to, slack you and your manager together, I will. Because I'm here to represent both the company, but then also the candidate. And if I'm not doing that, I'm doing a disservice to both.
Fair play. It bit of a strange question. I guess what's the ideal interview process within
Yes.
engineering specifically? Like, what do you think is the ideal? I know it depends
It's a
on
hot
level of
topic.
seniority and a few things. Yeah, but like I think there's so many different ways of seeing it because I don't think it necessarily matters about seniority from like an engineering. If they're ICs, it should be the same really, regardless
Absolutely.
most of the time. So, what's the ideal amount of steps in the process, and what should be involved?
Yeah.
Tech tests or whatever sort of
So
stuff.
my cutoff, and I really, I die on this hill, is it shouldn't be more than 4 interviews. If we're going above 4 interviews, we're failing both ourselves and the candidate, in that sense. So engineering on our side, like right now we have a senior full stack opening. So that process, and right now I do the initial screen about 30 minutes face to face, similar to this kind of conversation, talk a little bit more about their background, learn a little bit more in depth about what their goals are. Is this a good fit for them? Is this a good
Yeah.
fit for the company? And then also just really being transparent. Hey, here's what the pay structure is. Is this within your range? There's nothing worse, in my opinion, than financial surprises. I've been there myself where you're so excited about a job, you get the offer, all of a sudden it's 20 grand under what you need. And it's like, "Ugh, like I want this, but I can't." In that sense. So that's the first round. And then from there, and we've recently shifted based on feedback, which I can get into after. But what we'll do is we do a technical screen. And I say technical screen, it's a phone call or a video call, I should say, similar to this. But now you just get 2 engineers. So it's more
Okay.
technical because I am not a tech
And
expert.
they're
I can
both
speak.
ICs, right? They're both
Yep.
ICs, yeah.
Both
Okay.
ICs. Sometimes we will also bring in like our principal architect or a team lead or a manager. It just depends on availability. And what I mean by availability, again, my communication style is quick. So is my interview scheduling. In a perfect world, an interview should only take 3 weeks. Granted, there's conferences, there's out of offices, there are going to be natural delays, but my goal is to stay within 1 month max. So it just depends on availability. But typically it's one IC and either some sort of leadership, or could be the hiring manager. It just depends on availability. From there, we then do a take home assessment. It is timed, and basically it's front end, back end, a SQL portion. And we usually give anywhere from a week to 2 weeks for that, depending on the situation. Because listen, candidates have a life outside of interviewing.
And
And
a
to ask
job as
them
well a lot of the time. Another
yeah,
job.
yeah.
Yeah.
And asking them to sit down for 2 hours, like, yes, you can find the time, but we want to make sure you can do it when you're ready and not so much you're rushed and crammed to do this right after work when you're exhausted. So typically perfect world, we ask a week, but if they ask for more time, we're flexible.
And is it 2 hours
Um,
long? 2 hours normally.
Yep, 2 hours. No, that's the time. It sometimes takes less, in that sense. But then from there, we then get the assessment back. I then send it over to our principal architect as well as some of our engineers. They review it. We have more than one person review it as well, just to make sure not that there's any bias, essentially, in that sense. And then we also take our notes from my screen as well as a second round technical screen and account that into our decision. So we look at the assessment, both the interviews, and then from there we make our decision. Should we go to final rounds?
So it's
From
not
there,
just a case of pass and fail, is that correct? So you don't just
no.
have a pass and fail rate, it's
Nope.
about combined.
Yep. And that's the recent shift we made based off feedback. Because about, I want to say 6 months ago, maybe a little longer, candidates reached out and they were like, this was a great experience, but I felt like I didn't have a chance to really vouch for myself. I got to speak with you. I did the assessment, but I didn't get a chance to talk with the engineers or
Mm.
understand their perspective. Completely valid feedback that, you're almost removed from it, that you don't see it that way because you look at it from a process standpoint. So then that's when we started implementing that tech screen in the beginning to make sure, one, they get like I could sell the company, I can talk all about it. I cannot tell you about the day-to-day of an engineer, in depth to the way an engineer can. So I think it was really important to kind of bring that forefront. And it also kind of helped with the hacker rank assessments too, right? More candidates were taking the assessment, where before it's like, okay, there's other jobs. Like, I don't need to sit for a 2-hour test, in that sense,
They've
which
got to
I
have
get.
buy-in, right? They have to have buy-in from you
Yes.
guys as well. So I
Yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
important that is. And it's
Absolutely.
Hacker rank you use for
Yep.
the
Hacker
code.
rank.
Have you
Yep.
heard of CoderPad or not?
No, I don't believe we used to
Few
use
of our
Woven.
Woven. A few of our clients use CoderPad, but that's a really short. They're like a really short thing, but
I'm gonna write that down.
yeah, it's called CoderPad assessment. Have a look into it. It's. I've had good feedback from candidates. I think they have like an hour thing normally, but I'm not sure if it's good enough to be in depth for full stack. That's more for
Yeah.
DevOps and cloud stuff that we
Which
do.
we
But
hire for that too. So I mean,
yeah,
maybe I could look into it for that. The other thing that I really appreciate about prompt, and especially when we're looking at technical roles, is when we do these take-home assessments, it's relevant to the work we're doing here. So
that's
it's
good.
not just busy work, right? There's nothing worse than having to do an assessment about nothing. So it also kind of gives the candidate a glimpse into maybe some of the projects or work they'd be doing here as
Is it
well.
healthcare related normally, or
It's like, yeah, so like scheduling, things along those lines that are related to our system.
I should have asked this at the start, by the way. What a prompt actually do, Kate? Because we had this discussion just before we actually
I know,
started
right before. I
recording.
apologize. Yeah, so Prompt is really the first all-in-one healthcare system for, it's basically an electronic medical records company. So really, again, we were co-founded by two lifelong best friends, Mike and Adam. Both of them experienced physical therapy more than maybe your average person, and saw a lot of the pain points and inefficiencies and wanted to make it better selfishly for themselves, but then also for everyone else. So they had a few ideas, and then around 2019 is when they really established what we sell today, which is that all in one. So we've integrated scheduling, reporting, documentation, and billing all into one super
Is it a
user friendly
private
platform.
healthcare sort of platform? Is it for private sort of hospitals and stuff? Or
Yeah, so it's mainly like outpatient. So outpatient physical therapy, occupational therapy, in that sense.
nice. My mum, I think I
Yeah.
told you, my mum's actually an occupational therapist, which is
Yeah.
so it's interesting. It's sort of same line of work she works within.
When are you
Is it
gonna
just
have to
you?
get this over to the UK?
I was gonna say, so that's my next question. I was gonna say, are they in the UK yet or not? Is it just
Not
US or?
yet. Yeah, right now we're US only. Because again, like we only started in 2017, so it's been really exciting to kind of, or I guess 2017 is when we started, but we launched what we offer today in 2019. So we're still young and yeah, just getting
For 6
started
years, and then this year you've sort of like more than doubled in growth
every year. Yeah,
every
so
year.
every
Wow,
every year since we've started, we've doubled in size. So I think we're just under 365 employees right now.
nice. Fair play,
Yeah.
fair play. What are the
Yeah.
plans for you and the talent team moving forward? Next, let's call it next year or 2 years. What's your runway looking like in terms of headcount for your
Yeah.
team? Are you hiring for your team at the moment? If so, plug it, and we can obviously
Yes.
I'll put it on my LinkedIn, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we do have plans to expand our team. Just trying to figure out timeline wise of when we should do that. But I'd say realistically, in the next few months, we will probably have a talent acquisition opening. So if anyone's interested, reach out to me directly on
In New York,
LinkedIn.
right? New York.
Yeah, in New York. Our office is actually in Hoboken, New Jersey. We're technically hybrid. I have my colleagues come in about once or twice a week. I'm flexible with that, but I just think that face to face goes a really long way, and driving that culture and just making sure the team's aligned. But yeah, so really we're working through headcount plans right now. We're going to get through the end of the year, hopefully get close to about 400 employees. And then from there, I don't think we're going to continue to double in size every single year. That's just not maintainable.
No.
But we're definitely growing like crazy in the market. So I don't think hiring is going to slow down by any means.
Okay. And when you're hiring somebody in talent for my recruitment network out there in the US, like what do you look for in a talent professional
Yeah,
within your team?
I think the top three things, again, theme of the call the theme of the call today,
Candidate
empathy,
experience.
right? Yeah, candidate experience. If you don't care about candidate experience, it's just not going to be a fit. And I also love that my style of leadership is everyone has a seat at the table, and it's not so much a top down structure where it's no, let's collaborate together. What are you seeing? What is your experience? And really coming together and planning. My favorite thing to do is kind of come together and talk through a hard role we're struggling to fill. Okay, why? What have you done so far? And then kind of brainstorming on whether it's sourcing messaging, whether it's working and kind of talking with the hiring managers about shifting priorities or, just collaborating and having someone like almost like a soundboard, right? There's nothing more valuable than talking to someone that's in the same position as you where, oh, this candidate just turned down this offer. He was the perfect fit. I found him on LinkedIn, just venting some days too. So I think just being a team player is really important. Passion for candidate experience. I don't need you to eat, sleep, breathe it again, but it needs to be a top priority. Communication, again, is something that's really important, which kind of ties into candidate experience. But then also, I think another valuable asset is, in my opinion, and I'm not shutting down any other background by any means, I'm open to anything, but having that agency background first, I think just builds character and grit. And I think that's what you need in a startup that's fast paced.
I think most people that work in talent do come from that
Yeah,
background anyway, so I think it's not hard to find in that respect. But I think
exactly.
those that haven't got it, I think, do struggle with sort of,
Yeah,
understanding of what it's like to partner with agencies, for example. That's the main thing I
absolutely.
think they struggle with. So
Yeah.
that's fair enough. With salaries and that type of stuff, Casey, are you okay to speak about salaries or not from your point of
Yeah.
view about that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I could tell you confidently, like, we pay above market for pretty much every role we hire for. But, yeah, we haven't worked through budget on TA yet, so I can't I can't go into
That
that
was a
because I
cheeky
don't know it yet.
question. That was a cheeky question. Thank you for answering that.
You're fine.
Well, I get some clips, Katie, for the podcast, you see, so
Mhm.
for YouTube and stuff. So,
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
what's your biggest piece of advice for candidates across any industry? Right, if they're
Yeah.
looking for work, what's your biggest advice?
Yeah, I think intention is everything, especially in an AI world right now. I think again, there's ways to use and utilize AI effectively. But when it comes to, you're serious about your job search, I think it's important to show that, right? So what I mean by that is most companies, at Prompt, what we do is we have basically like a pre-screen application questions, essentially, where you submit your resume, but then I ask you a few questions. Please don't use AI, right? It's so easy to tell. And the other thing I'd like to say is if you're looking to pivot into a new career, right? So you haven't had too much experience in it yet, that's okay. I know I can speak from Prompt, I can speak from previous roles. We hire those people. I think what helps you stand out there is showcasing, okay, you might not have direct experience, but in your current role, in previous roles, in trainings, clubs, whatever you're doing, what have you done that ties into that position? And tailor your resume without lying, right? But tailor your resume to kind of shadow what that role is, to showcase, okay, I haven't done this, but here's a similar scenario to show you I know what I would need to do if I were in that scenario or things along those lines. The one thing I have seen before, not too often, thankfully, but I've seen candidates just throw our key responsibilities or requirements into chat and then they just spit out bullets that are completely unrelated to their role. So it's just like, I want to give you a
With the
chance,
long
but
hyphen as well. Do you know the
oh,
long hyphen
always
it
the
has
long
on
hyphen.
chat?
I will
Yeah.
say I am guilty of that pre-chat. I would
Oh,
use
really?
that, but now I don't because people probably
I have
think
to
this
ask
is
chat to
chat.
remove the hyphen for me.
No, seriously, now I get rid of it because I'm like paranoid. I'll be typing an email and I'm like, nope, they're gonna think chat wrote this.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
I
love how
think
you call it
that
chat as well. Me and my colleague call it chat, by the way. We always just
no,
say,
like
ask chat,
chat's
ask chat.
chat's my
Yeah, yeah.
colleague.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. He's a good friend of mine as well, to be fair. Well,
But yeah,
yeah. No, fair play. I guess when it comes to like, apart from the advice on for like interviewing, any advice for interviewing? Because that's a whole
yeah.
different ballgame, right, than just applying for a job.
Totally. Totally. Yeah, I think number one, it's gonna be sound so generic, so I apologize, but be yourself. Like we want to see your personality, we want to see your passion. One of my favorite questions to ask, pretty much every role it applies to is talk me through something you're passionate about. Or what's the most proud like what's the proudest accomplishment you've had professionally? What was that? And so then with that, I kind of take that and then, I'll ask something else related to the role or something else related to the culture, whatever it is. But tying it back to the job, does their face light up the same way? Are they excited? I think that's a telltale sign, body language. That's not, I'm not by no means is that a disqualifying question, but it's just a tell. The other thing, it's as simple as, do research. I don't expect you to be a walking encyclopedia. I don't expect you to know everything about prompt. I don't expect you to know
That's a
everything
big
about
one, by
me.
the way. That's a big one. You at least have like
Yeah,
4 or 5 bullet points written down.
that's
Like,
it.
come on, it's just
Just
it's not
show
hard, is it?
intention.
Yeah.
No, I actually posted that on LinkedIn the other day and I got a
I
lot of,
missed it.
oh, you got to go read those comments. People are not happy.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah. And I get both sides, right? Because again, reputation, like our reputation as recruiters right now, it's not strong. And there are a ton of bad experiences. So, you got to have to take that into account. But I did post basically, much friendlier, but it's just like if you don't prep, like, how do you expect to move forward essentially in that next stage?
Trying to find it now, by the way, see if I can find it. I'll look after the podcast. That'll be
I
good
had like
read.
50,000 views. Like, I don't have a huge following by any means, but it had over 50,000 impressions, like 60
That's good.
comments. Yeah, that was the first time. And I was like, I did not expect this post to be the post, but
But those posts, Katie, that's what gets the brand out there from like
yeah,
a talent
exactly.
perspective. So like,
Exactly. So it works, but I'm like,
yeah.
I didn't want to make anyone mad. I'm trying to help and,
Did you get
but
any abuse or not? Any abuse from
nothing
people or
too bad. Nothing too bad.
no?
There
That's
was
good.
one reshare where I was just kind of like, ooh, okay.
Did you have to block that person by any chance or
No,
not?
I'll never block. Listen, LinkedIn is exactly for that, to speak your mind, whether it's, it's your venting pad, whether it's your networking, whatever it is, like, I'm not going to get in the way of that. Like, if you start maybe disrespecting me or coming after me personally, yeah, I'll probably block you, but I'm not going to
Yeah,
block you for your opinion. I respect it.
fair enough.
Don't agree with
But
it, but I
one,
respect it.
yeah, yeah. You know what? I think what I'll add to what you said there, two great points. And the last point I really do agree with as well, with like, just do some research. Is That's the
Yeah,
the minimum you should do as a candidate. And I
minimum.
think when I was younger, before going to recruitment, when I was sort of 18, 19, I didn't do my research either. And I
We all
think
have. Yeah.
you don't really think to do research. You just sort of
No.
like you just come unprepared, turn up at 5 minutes late, that sort of
Yep.
stuff. Which is my next point. My point is be on time for interviews. Please be
Yes.
on time. It's just it's punctuality for an interview is first impressions, and first impressions are really important. So if you're even a minute late to the interview, it's not a good
Not a
look
good
for your
look.
first stage or for any stage really
Yeah.
throughout the process. So I would
Yeah.
say always get there like 5 minutes beforehand, be ready for the
Yep.
call.
Just waiting, the
Waiting
anxious
on your
waiting.
own.
We've
Yeah,
all
yeah.
been
Bit of
there and you're just
music
kind
on
of
or whatever.
like,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. But yeah, I think that's an important thing too. And it just shows respect, for yourself in this opportunity, but then also for these people's times, right?
Yeah.
A lot of our interviews involve our co-founders. They involve our C-suite, right? Like, they have a million and one things they could be doing and they're here on time. Like,
Yeah.
and listen, things happen. Like, don't get me wrong. There's last minute cancellations. If you email me and say, "Hey, I'm 2 seconds, I'm gonna be 2 minutes, I swear this is a priority, something came up at work,"
That's fair. Yeah.
I get that. That's not gonna hurt you.
We've had
It
people
all goes
before
back to
that.
communication.
Yeah, we've had people before that have turned up like, so one of our clients, they're a global insurance company. They operate mainly in the US, by the way.
Mhm.
And this is last week, by the way, so it's a very recent thing for me. This network architect, so a bit different to what we normally recruit for, but they asked us to help with it, so we did.
Yeah.
And he's got like 20 years of experience in networking. He's an architect. He's like looking for like 240K. Like it's
Wow.
not like a junior role. And he turns up 8 minutes late. By the time, so with that
Oh.
company, we schedule all the interviews ourselves and we join the call with
Yep,
them. So let everybody in, that sort of thing.
that's
So me and the
perfect.
client were on the call for like 6 minutes. I said to the client, I said, look, you can leave now. I'm
And
going to
then you're
pull in.
scrambling too, and
I
it's
just,
just,
yeah, I just said like, look, I'm going to pull in. I respect your time. He's had his
this isn't
chance.
it.
He hasn't turned up, unless it's a really serious thing
Of
that he's got
course.
going on, which is fair enough. I said, I'm going to pull in. That's it. Like, I
Yeah.
don't really give people second chances, which sometimes I'm a bit brutal, but I think,
I'm the same way. I'm the same way.
yeah,
It's hard to get past, and I try to not let that bias. If they do join the call, I will have the conversation. If it's under, so typically what I do is if a candidate's late, I'll send an email about 2 minutes in.
yeah,
And then I wait until about 5 to 7 minutes. If they don't
yeah,
join,
yeah,
I leave. And if they have an
yeah.
excuse and it seems reasonable, we're human beings.
Reschedule or something. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. But like if there's no communication and, I struggle with that, you're not a fit.
You know what I hate as well within tech? Like when they say to me, Ben, I couldn't get the Teams working. And I'm like, unless your
Like,
Wi-Fi is like, unless something's actually happened, but they're technical people. They should
they're
know how to join
technical
a call.
people.
Like, come on.
And if you can't, guess what? You can call in. There's a way to call in.
Yeah, you can just let me know. I'm trying to get on the, yeah. So that guy
There's
last weekend,
always a
right?
dial in. And I'm like,
Yeah,
you could always dial in if you're that desperate, and we can kind of figure out what the issue is at that
yeah.
point.
Or even call
So
me on the mobile and say, "Ben, I
yeah,
can't join the call. I'll be 2 minutes," or whatever. So
100%.
there's always ways around it, but maybe I'm too
Yes.
harsh, but there we are. That's just
I'm
me.
right there with you, so it's okay.
I'm glad it's not just me then. Um, so I think, is there anything, Katie, you wanted to discuss on the podcast? I know we covered a lot. I think a lot of it comes back to that good candidate experience, which is
Yeah.
what I'm on board with as well. But is there anything you wanted to ask or want to discuss?
No, I mean, I think you covered all of the topics I really wanted to. I'll just plug prompt. We are constantly growing. And we have a ton of openings right now. We're one of the fastest health tech startups right now, or fastest growing health tech startups, I should
Is that
say.
globally or just in the US or?
In the US.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think actually now that I say that, I'd have to double check
From
that.
the sounds of it, you're growing very quick. So
Yeah.
I'll be surprised if it wasn't globally as well in
I want
terms
to
of
say it might
growth
be
from,
globally, but I don't want to misquote. So
it's
I
fine.
will,
Just
I will.
guess. It's fine.
I'm going to say globally. Globally.
Okay. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Um, and we always ask as well. So I have a question for you from our last guest, by the way.
Yes. I'm
So
going to
the
pull up my
question
notes
is,
with my
one sec.
question.
Yes,
Sorry.
it is. What is a common trap you've seen people fall into, and how would you avoid it?
Yeah. So I would say, and not to tie it into TA, but I'm going to tie it into TA, right? Something that I see is that people chase the paycheck. And I get it. Inflation, life's expensive. But I think it's something that's super powerful and it's when it's organic and you go for like that mission driven company and it fills that cup for you, right? The money follows. It just organically happens. So I think sometimes, and maybe that's why we see job hopping so frequently is because you chase that next dollar sign, and instead of looking at a company as a whole, like that was a common theme, on that LinkedIn post as well of no, candidates just want to get paid. That sounds great. Yeah, you'll be happy for 2 years, but then after that, you're gonna have no fulfillment. You're gonna be burnt out. I personally believe burnout is when you have lack of passion. There is such thing as burnout, but don't get me wrong. You can be overworked and things along those lines. But, I personally believe like if you don't have passion, you're more likely going to get burnt out. And that's when you start looking for that next role. So I think that's something that people fall into. And again, no fault. I get it. Life is expensive. And not every company maybe can give those raises or take care of you the way you want. So there's a fine line. But I think just finding that happy medium even where there's a world where those two can coexist, in my opinion.
If your skill set is strong enough, your valuation will go up anyway. So I always say to
Exactly.
candidates all the time, especially more junior people when they're looking for
Yeah.
advice and stuff, I always say to them, look, if you're looking for your first role in tech, for example, don't think about money. It shouldn't even be a
Nope.
consideration. Just get a job, a good job with a good company where they can help you to learn, improve your skill set, and then the rest will follow.
Yeah.
So
Show
that's
your
what I always say.
value and you'll be
Yeah,
taken care of.
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
What's your question, Kate, to the next guest?
Okay, I literally wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. Give me
Okay,
2
good.
seconds. Okay. What is something you've changed your mind about in your career and what led to that shift?
Okay, interesting one. Well, thanks
Yeah.
for coming on, Casey. It's been great to chat with you again. I
Yeah.
know, sorry for the delay. I know I've had a bad leg and stuff, so
Listen, you're good. I'm happy. You're healthy. All good. I'm here.
thank you. Yeah, couldn't sit on this chair for a while, so I had to sort of like,
Right?
yeah,
I can
yeah, I couldn't keep.
imagine.
I've got a little studio. I could probably show you this. I do music, Casey, as well. I sort of
Oh,
as a passion. So I
oh
have
my
like
gosh, that is
sort
so
of a little
cool.
studio. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I have like a little studio in here as
Oh,
well.
that is awesome. That's a good podcast
Yes,
studio too.
thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm actually we literally built this, I want to say like 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you can like see it, but it's like literally like a full
Oh wow.
studio. So next time you're
Is
in
that
the
podcast
city.
studio, okay? Is that the one you
Yeah.
mentioned to me on
Yep.
message? Ah, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So it's in our office. So next time when you're in New York and you want to continue the conversation with myself or even a colleague, like definitely come in.
That
We're
sounds
we're
good. I
here.
might be there next month, so I'll let you know. So
Yeah,
around
let me
two
know.
potentially.
Or
Maybe
even,
you can interview
even if
me
you just
next
want to
time.
get like a drink and we can meet up and talk about talent and all of
That sounds
our
good.
pain points.
That sounds good. Well, no, thank you for coming on, Katie, as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon.